COVID-19 is a crisis like no other. Never before have the lives of so many people around the world been affected at this scale or speed. This week, we continue to look at the changes and disruptions brought about by the ongoing pandemic. Nepal is widely known for its deeply entrenched patriarchal culture. For instance, women in the Himalayan nation are usually barred from cremation sites as it's considered taboo for women to touch dead bodies. The burial rites are usually performed by the son or other men in the family. But the pandemic is changing that in an unexpected way.
Many in Nepal still believe that a woman's place remains in the kitchen, and many aspects in life are off limits for them. But 23-year-old Nagma Mali has broken an age-old taboo. 15 years ago, she performed the last rites for her grandparents, a role usually performed by sons in the family.
जति पनि यो डोमिनेटिङ हुन्छ नि महिलालाई डोमिनेट गर्ने जति पनि त्यो कुराहरु छ त्यसमा चाहिँ अलि मद्दत पुग्यो त्यो त्यसलाई चाहिँ नकार्दै अगाडि जानलाई चाहिँ यो केटी मान्छेले चाहिँ अब श्राद्ध गर्न नहुने देखि लिएर हुन्छ नि सबै कुरा थाहा हुँदै गयो के अनि त्यसपछि तर मैले त गरेको थिए भन्ने मलाई भयो के अब स्कुलमा पढाउँदाखेरि देखि लिएर मान्छे साथीहरुसँग कुरा गर्दाखेरि
Nagma was just 8 when she performed the last rites for her grandfather, as there were no men in her family. She and her younger sister were raised by their grandparents after their mother died and their father went missing during Nepal's People's War.
हजुरबाको पालीमा चाहिँ अब केटा मान्छेले लाउनु पर्छ हैन अनि खासमा हजुरआमाले लगाउने भन्ने कुरा भएको थियो अनि हजुरआमालाई चाहिँ अब श्रीमती भएको कारणले चाहिँ हुँदैन भन्ने भयो अनि हजुरआमाले चाहिँ कसै पनि कुरा सुन्नु भएन अरूलाई नै लगाउने अब दाजुभाइ को छ उनीहरुलाई लगाउन दिने आफ्नो आफ्नो मान्छेलाई भन्ने थियो तर हजुरआमाले चाहिँ त्यो के भन्छ हैन अरु कसैलाई पनि दागबत्ती दिन नलगाउने दियो भने उसैले दिन्छ भनेर चाहिँ अनि मलाई दिन लगाउनु भएको थियो त्यतिबेला चाहिँ
It was a task Nagma performed again 2 years ago when her grandmother passed away. Historically, women are not allowed in these ceremonies because they are deemed too emotional and hysterical. According to Hindu laws, it is forbidden for a woman to touch a dead body. However, due to certain events, such as the 10-year-long conflict and massive migration of men for work, change has slowly been creeping into Nepali society. The 10-year-long conflict that ended in 2006 refers to Nepal's People's War, which left over 17,000 people dead and thousands displaced. Today, Nepal faces another crisis. The tiny Himalayan nation was hit hard by COVID-19, with over 271,000 confirmed infections and over 2,000 deaths. As the number of fatalities rose, the Nepalese army was put in charge of managing and cremating or burying the bodies of the COVID-19 victims. And for the first time, a squad of female soldiers were deployed to help manage the bodies. Private Meena is one of them. She comes from a rural area in the country that is steeped in tradition. Together with a team of 3 other young female soldiers, they are part of the military personnel tasked to oversee the cremation process.
अहिले हाम्रो समाजमा चाहिँ महिलाहरूले मलामी जानुहुन्न क्रियापुत्री बस्नुहुन्न भन्ने एउटा जुन धारणाहरू छन् नकारात्मक सोचहरू छन् त्यो सोचलाई र त्यो समाजलाई चाहिँ परिवर्तन गर्नको लागि हैन महिलाहरूले पनि केही गर्न सक्छन् भन्ने धारणाले चाहिँ सब व्यवस्थापनमा गरेर देखाउनको लागि चाहिँ हामीले यो तालिम गरेका छौं.
There are strict health and safety protocols in place while handling cremation for COVID-19 victims. Only military personnel are allowed to carry out the process and can only do it for a day. And we were given only limited access to Private Meena as she was whisked away to be quarantined for 2 weeks at the end of her shift. The Nepal Army spokesperson said such a move is part of a program to empower women.
We have a long history of recruiting, training, and employing females in the Nepali Army, and they do perform all sorts of jobs. Even in the context of COVID-19 crisis, they've been participating in quarantine duties, swab collection, transportation, and all sorts of duties related to COVID-19 response. So this was the only area where they have not been employed before. And then we thought about empowering them through this particular job as well, because we wanted to put them at par with their male counterparts, which is the right thing to do. There's an all-female company in Valley Division where we have asked for volunteers, and then there are many volunteers who came forward.
The task has been daunting as casualty figures rise. The densely populated capital city of Kathmandu and its surrounding areas account for almost half of Nepal's COVID-19 infections and more than 1/3 of its deaths. But the city has only one crematorium designated to handle the victims, at the iconic Pashupatinath temple. Reports say that at the height of the COVID pandemic, the temple saw 80 cremations a day as opposed to 30 per day at the same time last year. Despite the difficult task, Private Meena says it's been a privilege.
कोभिड को यो अब जुन अहिले महामारी को छ नि त्यो त शान्तिनो चुनौती हैन नि त ठुलै चुनौती हो त्यो चुनौतीलाई लडेर आफूले महिलाले यतिको गर्न सक्नु पुरुष जस्तो गर्न सक्नु भनेको चाहिँ एकदम ठुलो कुरो नै मान्छु म चाहिँ अब समाजमा अब त्यो नहोला पछि हामीले गरेर देखाइसकेपछि हैन महिलाले पनि गर्न सक्छन् भन्ने एउटा राम्रो नै संस्कार बस्ला भन्ने भावनाले चाहिँ मैले आज गर्दै छु.
And there are signs the glass ceiling is breaking slowly.
यो छोरी मान्छेले गर्नु नि एकदमै राम्रो हो. छोराछोरी अहिले सम्म एउटै हुन्. त्यसकारणले गर्दाखेरि छोरीले गर्नु एकदमै राम्रो हो.
However, it'll still take time to break centuries-old practices and prejudices in a country where women are still considered impure because they menstruate.
यो छोरी मान्छेको त बस्नु त हुँदैन नि हैन हाम्रो पुर्खादेखि चलेको रीतिरिवाज हो यो त्यसरी छोरी मान्छे हैन छोरा मान्छे बस्नुपर्छ भन्ने मेरो चाहिँ धारणा छ.
But images like this will go some way towards chipping away age-old taboos and possibly pave the way for more women to take on other non-traditional roles.
Cockfighting has been a favorite pastime for many Filipinos, with the game fowl industry employing hundreds of thousands of people. But when the pandemic first struck, the industry was dealt a severe blow as people were banned from attending live events. But as the coronavirus forced the country into lockdown and people increasingly turned online for entertainment, a sizable gaming market soon emerged on the internet. Now the government is scrambling to catch up with the shift as it studies ways to regulate and tax online cockfighting.
Tall and beautiful. But these are not your ordinary roosters. In the Philippines provinces, large swaths of land are dedicated to breed them. These fowls are bred specifically to fight one another, often to their death, in a blood sport known locally as sabong. These little ones may look harmless, but they have the bloodline of the deadliest birds.
Breeders say chicks like these are quote-unquote born as warriors, and that is because they come from a winning breed. Those are game fowls who have consistently won their fights in the past.
When they grow and become adult birds, this is how they will fight, with a blade attached to one of their legs and spectators cheering them on. While in most countries cockfighting has been outlawed for animal cruelty, it's a tradition that's deeply entrenched in Filipino culture. For 3 years, real estate agent Paul Aguilar has been breeding game fowls as a pastime.
Parte na po talaga ng kultura ng Pinoy, ma'am. And pag passion mo kasi yan, kahit saan ka pa mapunta, talagang passion mo na yan. Halimbawa, hanap-hanapin kumbaga. Ma'am, ang kwan po kasi dyan, enjoy po talaga. Lalo na nakapagpatubo ka, halimbawa nakapagpapisa ka ng mga sisiw. Yung mga sisiw na napapatubo mo is nagpapanalo. Doon po yung nakakatuwa.
But what really sustains the industry and makes it a lucrative business that's so hard to uproot is gambling at cockfights. Local cockpits make money by collecting entrance fees and commissions on wagers. It's estimated that the country's game fowl industry employs some 385,000 Filipinos, from cockpit personnel to poultry store staff and veterinary and feed company employees. At this farm, for instance, dedicated healers or manggagamot are hired to attend to its fighting cocks. They take care of injured roosters. For birds that can still fight, they will be nurtured back to health. Butchers are also hired to defeather the dead fowls, which are to be delivered to the owner of its winning opponent. Animal rights advocates say, apart from being cruel to animals, cockfighting is closely connected to other crimes such as illegal gambling and other acts of violence. But for Joel Ramirez, the tradition is also for his livelihood.
Wala, ang ini-enjoy ko yan kasi ang iniisip ko yung para sa pamilya na lang eh. Hindi yung magsasabong ka para sa bisyo mo. Kundi yung kikitain mo para sa pamilya mo. 2017 wala akong bahay. Nangungupahan lang ako. Nung pumasok ako dito ng empleyado, nung nagbukas ito, kinuha akong empleyado. Sa totoo lang, one year nakapagpatayo ako ng bahay ko.
But the industry faced a crisis in 2020 when the COVID-19 pandemic forced large parts of the country into lockdowns. Live cockfighting events with spectators were banned to stop the spread of the coronavirus. With billions of pesos of gaming revenues and hundreds of thousands of jobs at stake, cockfight organizers began to live stream fights and accept wagers through online platforms. While online betting on cockfighting has not been legalized, it's been around for some time already. Because of the pandemic, it has exploded in popularity.
What we have here is a website for digital betting on live-streamed cockfights, and here in the Philippines, there is still no regulatory framework for websites like these. You can see in the login page a disclaimer saying users from the Philippines are not allowed. But once you log in, and we have a dummy account here, you can see that the website is meant for Filipino audiences, as the commentator is speaking in Filipino. And even the buttons on the right for digital betting are in the Filipino language.
A website like this can live stream up to 300 cockfights a day, with bets placed on single cockfight reaching millions of Philippine pesos. As online operations of cockfighting's ballooned, calls for the gray market to be regulated also grew. Currently, only physical cockpits that are open to the public pay amusement tax to the city or town government where it is located. In December, the House of Representatives approved a bill imposing taxes on online operations on licensed cockfights and derbies. The bill seeks to impose a 5% tax on gross revenue receipts of the digital operators. Lawmaker Sharon Garin is one of many pushing to tax these online operations.
With technology and with COVID, there is a certain part of this industry that is unregulated, that is not taxed. So this is the right time to propose this measure. Yes, there is the consequence of betting, which is already part of our culture, I would say, actually.
Proponents say an estimated 1.25 billion Philippine pesos or $26 million will be raised per year, more than 90 times the current annual collection from licensed cockpits.
This will help the country generate for a very conservative estimate of 1 billion per year, as against the 13 million per year. I think it is just right for the government to get revenues from this and use these revenues, whether it is to fight COVID or promote health or any other social activities.
Okay, good luck.
COVID-19 may have sounded the death knell for many companies and some industries here in the Philippines. But ironically, it's given a new lease of life to cockfighting. And the Philippine Association of Feed Millers has said the gamefowl industry is its anchor for growth in 2021. So moving online means that cockfighting will not only remain a way of life here, but it could also possibly reach beyond its traditional audience base.
Countries rich and poor alike are not spared from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. In Pakistan, an economic backwater that relies heavily on its cash-based informal sector, digital adoption is gaining pace as the pandemic has pushed some brick-and-mortar companies to move online.
Ahmed Wakar owns art galleries across Islamabad. Business was good until the COVID-19 crisis hit. When the government imposed a lockdown to deal with the pandemic, he was forced to close his shops. No walk-in customers meant no income. In an attempt to stay afloat, Mr. Wakar moved his business online.
उनके जो expenses थे, it was same, but जो clientele थी, it was almost dead. So the reason is कि online is something जो कि लोग घर बैठ के doorstep पे खुद चीज़ें select करते हैं. It's easy for them. तो उनको एक ऐसी फैसिलिटी प्रोवाइड करने के लिए कि वो घर पे रहते हुए एक अच्छी शॉपिंग कर सकें with good quality, with good choice.
Pakistan's fledgling e-commerce industry received a boost during the pandemic. Forced to stay home during the lockdown, those who could turned to shopping online. Data shows that the number of registered e-commerce merchants and e-commerce payments both doubled in the span of 12 months.
People are focusing more and more on online business since COVID. And this shift is out of necessity rather than opportunity. I have noticed many entrepreneurs emerging with new ideas like the online grocery shop, online pharmacy, online retails.
The urban young are a key demographic driving growth in Pakistan's e-commerce industry. 2/3 of the 210 million population are under the age of 30, and 37% of them live in cities. They're big consumers of the internet, social media, and shopping online.
Online shopping, yeah, and मैं mostly जो है purchase even Daraz.pk and AliExpress for internationally, तो मैं काफ़ी वहाँ से purchase करता रहता हूँ. Basically इसके दो reasons हैं. एक तो nobody want to move, ठीक है, from this comfort place. जो next point है वो ये है कि लोगों के पास online जो है ज़्यादा variety आती है. Even ज़्यादा competition है, तो आपको जो है कोई अच्छी products जो होती है मुनासिब रेट में मिल जाती है.
Clothes and accessories are the top items that young people buy online. A trend that designer Anamta Qureshi is keen to tap on. She posts her products on Instagram and is building a website.
So I started my online venture when I was sitting in the quarantine doing nothing. I think it is more successful because there's it's more or less expensive to have a business. There's no physical space to to pay for the rent, to pay for the electricity. There's less human interaction, which is really important during the pandemic situation.
However, there are hurdles to growth potential of digital commerce in Pakistan.
According to the Global Connectivity Index, Pakistan ranks 3rd from the bottom out of 79 countries. There's lack of 4G towers and efficient optic fiber systems, especially in rural areas. Phone and internet costs are high. The country's poor cybersecurity system turns people off doing business online.
To overcome these barriers, the government has set up an IT task force.
So digitalization is one of the top priorities for this government. It was the first time that any party before coming to the government came up with the digital policy as part of their manifesto.
With its Digital Pakistan initiative, the government is looking to accelerate the pace of its people and businesses becoming wired for the future.
Sunglasses seller Mastan Bibi is one of millions of people who are part of Pakistan's informal economy. She earns little, deals only in cash, and doesn't have a bank account. The government-run digital payment system RAST aims to help low-income groups and underprivileged women like Mastan enter the formal economy. RAST, or Direct Way, is Pakistan's first instant payment system that enables near real-time digital transactions among individuals, businesses, and government bodies. It can be accessed online through a mobile phone or an agent. The government also hopes RAST can help fight poverty by collecting more taxes.
According to Prime Minister Imran Khan, Pakistan collects the least amount of taxes in the world, affecting its ability to provide basic services. Only 2 million people in a country of 220 million pay taxes. Also, only 0.2% of around 100 billion transactions made in Pakistan are electronic, which means that most of them cannot be tracked or taxed.
RAST would document the economy and help generate more tax revenue to build infrastructure like housing, hospitals, and schools. By enabling transparent transactions, the government also hopes to tackle corruption and fraud. However, Pakistan has a low level of electronic transactions due to a lack of connectivity, trust, and education, particularly among the poor.
नहीं बेटा, हमें पढ़ना लिखना नहीं आते। हम दूसरा मोबाइल हमको आता ही नहीं है बेटा, हम कैसे कर सकते हैं बेटा, इतना हमारा गुंजाइश ही नहीं है बेटा।
Far-flung areas of Pakistan, network connectivity is pretty poor. So if you have to use a system like RAST, you need to have the complementarities in place, and I'm afraid if you are considering the quality of services, for example the connectivity, it's pretty poor. Then is there any incentive for them? Not at the moment, no.
The organization that developed RAST says making a product that would be useful to everyone was foremost on their minds.
So what we also want to focus through RAST is to offer services which people of all walks of life and all segments can also adopt. And here we will focus on the user interface, and it has to be very simple so that everybody can understand how to use RAST.
Though not without its challenges, the initiative is part of the Digital Pakistan's vision to lift up poorer sections of society, so that eventually people like Mastan Bibi can also benefit from government services.